Chapter 1 of Sergeant York and His People. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Brett Downey. Sergeant York and His People by Sam Cowan. A Fight in the Forest of the Argonne. Just to the north of Châtel-Chaillery, in the Argonne Forest in France, is a hill which is known to the American soldiers as Hill No. 223. Fronting its high wooded knoll on the way to Germany are three more hills. The one in the center is rugged. Those to the right and left are more sloping, and the one to the left, which the people of France have named York's Hill, turns a shoulder toward Hill No. 223. The valley which they form is only from 200 to 300 yards wide. Early in the morning of the 8th of October, 1918, as a floating gray mist relaxed its last hold on the tops of the trees on the side of those hills, the All-America Division, the 82nd, poured over the crest of No. 223. Prussian guards were on the ridge-tops across the valley, and behind the Germans ran the Decauville Railroad, the artery for supplies to a salient still further to the north which the Germans were striving desperately to hold. The second phase of the Battle of the Meuse Argonne was on. As the fog rose, the Americans jumped off down the wooded slope, and the Germans opened fire from three directions. With artillery they pounded the hillside. Machine guns savagely sprayed the trees under which the Americans were moving. At one point, where the hill makes a steep descent, the American line seemed to fade away as it attempted to pass. This slope, it was found, was being swept by machine guns on the crest of the hill to the left, which faced down the valley. The Germans were hastily planting other machine guns there. The Americans showered that hilltop with bullets, but the Germans were entrenched. The sun had now melted the mist and the sky was cloudless. From the pits the Germans could see the Americans working their way through the timber. To find a place from which the Boche could be knocked away from those death-dealing machine guns and to stop the digging of foxholes for new nests, a non-commissioned officer and 16 men went out from the American line. All of them were expert rifle shots who came from the support platoon of the assault troops on the left. Using the forest's undergrowth to shield them, they passed unharmed through the bullet-swept belt which the Germans were throwing around Hill No. 223 and reached the valley. Above them was a canopy of lead. To the north they heard the heavy cannonading of that part of the battle. When they passed into the valley they found they were within the range of another battalion of German machine guns. The Germans on the hill at the far end of the valley were lashing the base of No. 223. For their own protection against the bullets that came with the whip of a wasp through the treetops, the detachment went boldly up the enemy's hill before them. On the hillside they came to an old trench which had been used in an earlier battle of the war. They dropped into it. Moving cautiously, stopping to get their bearings from the sounds of the guns above them, they walked the trench in Indian file. It led to the left, around the shoulder of the hill, and into the deep dip of a valley in the rear. Germans were on the hilltop across that valley, but the daring of the Americans protected them. The Germans were guarding the valleys and passes, and they were not looking for the enemy in the shadow of the barrels of German guns. As the trench now led down the hill, carrying the Americans away from the gunners they sought, the detachment came out of it and took skirmish formation in the dense and tangled bushes. They had gone but a short distance when they stepped upon a forest path. Just below them were two Germans, with Red Cross bands upon their arms. At the sight of the Americans, the Germans dropped their stretcher and turned and fled around a curve. The sound of the shots fired after them was lost in the clatter of the machine guns above. One of the Germans fell, but regained his feet, and both disappeared in the shrubs to the right. It was kill or capture those Germans to prevent exposure of the position of the invaders, and the Americans went after them. They turned off the path where they saw the stretcher bearers leave it, darted through the underbrush, dodged trees and stumps and brushes. Jumping through the shrubs and reeds on the bank of a small stream, the Americans in the lead landed in a group of about 20 of the enemy. The Germans sprang to their feet in surprise. They were behind their own line of battle. Officers were holding a conference with a major. Private soldiers, in groups, were chatting and eating. They were before a little shack that was the German major headquarters, and from it stretched telephone wires. The Germans were not set for a fight. Out from the brushwood and off the bank across the stream, one after another, came the Americans.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?